Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me for the second episode of the series for test-driven development with Laravel 8. So first thing we're going to do is take a look at our routes. You can see here we have about 10 or more routes that are currently available in our web application. First thing we can do is write a test for our web route. It's a GET request. It's just the web route slash. Let's go to where this is being defined. If we go to web.php, we can see there is no authentication required, no middleware to get to the web route. It loads up the welcome view, and visually, if we log out, when we are a guest, we see this screen. We see a login and a register. We're going to be using PHPUnit for our testing, and it's going to be written inside of the test directory of our web application. We have our feature tests and our unit tests. And for feature, we have a starting test. And looks like they are making a GET request to the web route, and they are asserting that we get a status of 200. So if we run the test, it's going to say, all right, we're able to access the web route of slash. That's a very simple test, and let's give it a shot. PHP artisan test. All right, you'll see here we have our feature test that we're looking at, and it's example test. The name is actually example, and it passed, both passed. Our unit test that we get started with and our feature test. We're not going to worry about unit testing right now. We're going to proceed with features. And let's go ahead and let's make a new test. I don't want to edit this file. I want to create a new test. This is going to be a general routes test, because this slash web route comes right out of the box with Laravel. So in regards to our structure for our tests, we're just going to create a new file here called basic routes test.php, and we'll go ahead and create a test for guest users accessing the web route. So let's do it. PHP artisan make test. This by default is going to be a feature test. So let's do a basic routes test and enter. All right, you see we have a basic routes test.php added to the root of our feature tests. We get some packages already referred to but not being used. We get a repeat of this example test. Let's go ahead and replace this and say, let's say something like a GET request to slash as guest user gets response of successful. Yeah, and that's fine with me. Period. And we need to identify this as a test. I don't want to keep repeating test in the name of each test. So I'm going to annotate it right here as test, and return void is correct. Let's go ahead and create a test name. So basic get web route as guest is successful. All right, let's go ahead and get rid of this. So we're going to be referring to PHPUnit documentation. And inside the documentation for Laravel, if we go to testing and HTTP tests, we have some really good documentation here. So let's start off with PHPUnit. I'm going to go to assertions. And this is the verbiage used for PHPUnit tests. You get this assert, you're asserting something to be true. And that's what allows a test to pass or fail. Like in the case for this example test, we're asserting a status of 200. And if we don't get a response of 200, this assert status is going to fail. So let's try to write this test out real quick. First, let's make a GET request to, we'll do a slash as a guest user. Let's see here. What kind of asserts do we have available from PHPUnit? We have all kinds. We can assert that we get a Boolean. We can assert that something is null. Now, if we go to the Laravel documentation and we scroll down on this HTTP tests section, you'll see we have a bunch of assertions that are available through Laravel that you might not see in PHPUnit documentation. And these are quite helpful. You'll see we have an assert OK option, which asserts that a response has a 200 HTTP status code, which is interesting because you'll see with this example test, we're asserting a status of 200, but asserting OK with no argument basically does the same thing. So let's run the test this way. I think this is, instead of saying assert status 200, I think assert OK is a much cleaner way of doing it. So let's try testing again. Oh, we get a risk. Oh, this is in our new basic routes test. So we're not performing any assertions in this test. So we're getting a risk, which makes sense. It's saying you've got a test here which doesn't like test for anything. So if we go back, we do see that this does pass. So this assert OK is a pretty cool change to what we had. So when you have time, I would go through and I would study all these assertions, what's available. It's really cool. So let's go back to our GET request to the web root as a guest user. So make guest or make GET request to slash as a guest user. So let's store this in a response variable and say this. We're going to assert that we're a guest. Let's see here. Do we have assert guest in our Laravel documentation? Yeah, we do. So what we're doing here is we're asserting that a user is not authenticated. And the test will fail if we're not a guest right here in the test. And now we're going to do the fun part of getting. We're going to say route by name. Do we have, if we go to our routes here, you can see the web root, it doesn't have a name. It's just a URI. So I guess we can't really go with a name. Let's just do get slash. And that's it. So we're storing this response. We're hitting the web root as a guest, and we're storing the response to the response variable. And now we're going to come down here and first let's say we're looking for a response of 200. So we want the assert OK. What I like to do is comment with what this code is doing. So we're asserting that the response has a 200 HTTP status code. And we're going to say this, assert OK. And let's see if this passes. All right, it did not pass. It failed. Call to undefined method of assert OK. Now, why could that be? Well, it's probably because we're not referencing the response at all. So let's try replacing this with the response variable. I'm trying again. All right, it passed. So we can see here in our output that there was a successful pass for basic get web root as guest is successful. Yeah, I don't like the way that sounds. Get web root as guest is successful. I like that more. So let's get rid of basic. So we're going to say get web root as guest is successful. Well, this looks like a really cool test for our first one. Now, if the welcome screen goes down or the website is unresponsive, this will fail. If somebody changes the web root to not work, this will fail. But let's go a little deeper. Let's create a new test file, not just for a route response, but maybe for like a view. Let's do some sort of a visual a test on this screen for guest users. And what would that test be? It would be if we load the web root as a guest user, we should see the login and register links. If you're logged in, let's try logging in and going to the web root, you see a home link. You don't see the login and register. So that's kind of unique for the guest user. Let's go ahead and go home and log out. And let's build the test for this. Let's create a new file. So we're going to do PHP artisan make test. And it's going to be basic views test. All right, let's do that. And you'll see here we got a new file called basic views test. Let's go ahead and open that up. I'm going to go ahead and grab this comment that we created here. So we have a GET request to webroot as guest user, gets response of successful. Let's change that to meet this new type of test. And we'll say, oops. Okay, let's say view and content loading for slash webroot as guest user. And we have our test annotation, so that way Laravel knows that's a test. And let's go ahead and rename this. I'm going to rename it webroot as guest. All right, let's say I'm going to go ahead and copy this over because we are making a GET request to the webroot as guest user again. We are asserting that we're a guest before we actually make that GET request to the webroot. And what we're going to want to do is make sure that that view that is loading for guest users is the welcome view. So how do we do that? Let's go back to our Laravel documentation and check out all the different assertions that we have to choose from. Let's see if there's anything for a view. Assert view is, here we go. Assert that the given view was returned by the route. Let's grab that. We're going to do that right here. And looks like they have a little snippet for us. All right, so we're going to take the response from our GET request, and we're going to assert that the view is it is welcome. We have our welcome view, and we can verify that by right here. As soon as a user hits the web root, we're being returned the welcome view. Pretty straightforward. So that's one test that's going to need to pass here. And let's see what else. We know that as a user, a guest user, when they load this web root page, they're seeing login and register links. They're not seeing a home. So let's see if there is anything for a visual test in our documentation. If we go back to our assertions, view has that's more for variables. Let's see. Okay. I don't see anything here. Oh, you know what? Okay. Assert C text. Assert that the given string is contained within the response text. But what do we know? How do we know what the response text is? Well, we can see it through the browser, but is there another way? Let's try changing this. Let's go ahead and run this test, see how we're doing so far. All right, it's passing. So we do know when we hit this, when we make a GET request to the web root as a guest, we are getting the view of welcome returned. What else are we getting though? Let's here's something cool we can do. We can dump the session data on this GET request. Run test again, and you can see we've got a little array here of data. Not very useful, but we can also try dump. And if we dump, it's actually dumping out all the HTML from this route, what gets returned from this route. So we can actually see here, these are those 4 boxes that get rendered on the home page. We can see we literally get rendered the login text and the register text. So what we should do here, let's do the C text. We'll assert seeing text. Assert that the given string is contained within the response text. Makes for a good comment. And then let's say response, assert C text. And was that 1 word or 2 words for login? 2 words. All right. Let's try something new, and let's try and make this test fail. Logins. We know logins does not exist in the return text anywhere in here. So let's try to assert that we see the text logins. This should fail, and it does fail. Failed to assert that all this text here contains logins. Let's remove this dump. We don't need it. Run the test again. Yeah, same thing. And it even tells us the line in which we're failing. Basic views test.php line 29. So it is this new one that we knew would fail. Let's change it to login. All right, and we passed. Let's see if home works for guest user. Nope, there is no text of home on the welcome screen in the web root for a guest user. So let's go back to login. Also, let's grab this comment for assert OK. Assert OK is the same thing as assert status with a argument of 200. All right, let's run this test. and we passed. So we see web root as guest is loading in and passing, and web root as guest is getting a response of successful. So you can see we kind of have some duplication here. We're making a GET request to web root as guest user and checking that we get a status of okay in one test, and we're doing the exact same thing in another test with some stuff in the middle, some additional testing. So it's up to you if you want to keep this test or just combine it with this one. I like to have multiple tests. It's really your preference. But so we got 2 tests so far. We're checking the web root is getting a response of okay for guest users, and we're also making sure that the correct view is loaded and the text, visual text, is correct for guest users. So we'll go ahead and continue in the next video. Thank you.